Investigators have been waiting for tonight, chasing down the underwater signals that seem to indicate the missing jumbo jet. Taking the stand, an emotional Oscar Pistorius speaks directly to the parents of the woman he killed. Rescue at sea, a family emergency, a baby in urgent need of help. The U.S. Navy goes to the rescue, and now the backlash against two parents sailing around the world with two small children. And the epidemic destroying lives and families across our country. Tonight, a powerful personal look at the growing toll of heroin addiction. Also tonight, a Hollywood legend has been lost. Nightly news begins now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. It's now been 1 month since Flight 370 was last heard from, and while the cable news coverage has called it breaking news for 30-plus days now, the first real break came at midday Monday in Australia with word that the underwater sounds that vessels are picking up are consistent with the sounds of the emergency beacon on a submerged wide-body jetliner. If this is indeed the wreckage, it is several miles down, and another long process will now begin. But first, the race to confirm a fading sound deep in the ocean. We begin our coverage tonight with NBC's Tom Costello.
It was the Australian ship Ocean Shield pulling a U.S. Navy pinger locator that picked up something that sounds like this. An underwater pinger attached to every plane's flight data and cockpit voice recorders. The ship heard a constant pulse for 2 hours, 20 minutes before losing the signal. When it picked the signal up again, it heard what sounded like two distinct pingers for 13 straight minutes. Search commanders say they could be from the black boxes.
It could take some days before the information is available to establish whether these detections can be confirmed as being from MH370. In very deep oceanic water, nothing happens fast.
The underwater pings were heard along one of two arcs identified by engineers who used the plane's faint satellite connections to map out possible flight paths. The Australian-American team's location is 375 miles north of where the Chinese Navy reported hearing pings on Saturday. Given the distance, experts say it's unlikely they're hearing the same signal. But the Australian-American team is cautiously optimistic.
We'd like to be able to tell the families that we found the location, but until we can reconfirm, we should not be too optimistic.
More than a month since Flight 370 vanished, search teams have only found trash, not a single piece of plane wreckage on the ocean surface. Complicating efforts, that area of the Indian Ocean is nearly 3 miles deep, 14,800 feet. The equivalent would be 14 Eiffel Towers stacked on top of each other. The very limits of where the Navy's unmanned Bluefin 21 submarine can operate to map the ocean floor.
They'll have to then get down with the ROV and photograph the entire debris field and try and isolate those areas where the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder might be located.
If they have heard the actual pingers from the plane's flight data and cockpit voice recorder, experts say it could take several weeks to photograph the wreckage and pinpoint the black boxes. Then a submersible robot with claws would be used for the retrieval. In a best-case scenario, the entire process could take at least a month and maybe even longer. Brian?
Tom Costello in our Washington newsroom tonight. Tom, thanks. It's important to remember there were 239 passengers and crew on board this flight, and for their families, this has been an awful wait. Again tonight, NBC's Katie Tur is in Kuala Lumpur, where the flight originated. Katie, good evening.
Brian, family members of loved ones are trying not to get their hopes up, saying that with each new news briefing, it seems like they're opening up yet another wound, especially when they don't announce that they've found the plane. Most of the Chinese family members who flew here to Malaysia demanding answers from officials have now gone back to Beijing, where today many held a candlelight vigil marking 1 month since the disappearance. Meanwhile, the Malaysian transport official minister said once again that he is hoping for a miracle, a hard thing for many to hear after the Prime Minister told them to prepare for the worst. But Brian, without concrete evidence that the plane actually crashed, many are saying there's no reason to give up hope that their loved ones are still out there just waiting to be rescued.
Katie Tur in Kuala Lumpur tonight, rounding out our coverage of this downed jetliner. Katie, thanks. In this country this evening, we are watching another system of severe weather after it rolled through the southeast. In Covington County, Mississippi, they're assessing the damage from a tornado that hit early this morning. Weather Channel meteorologist Mike Seidel is there for us tonight. Mike, good evening.
Hi, Brian. Good evening to you. Severe weather pounded the deep south beginning early this morning before sunrise. And here in Covington County, Mississippi, the results were devastating. An EF2 tornado with winds as high as 125 miles per hour touched down in the rural community of Hot Coffee, Mississippi in Covington County, hitting before residents could even react.
And all I heard was a little noise say boom. And then my trailer picked my trailer up and fell right on top of this car right here.
The early morning storm destroyed nearly 30 homes and tore the roof off dozens more, leaving down power lines in its wake. 7 people were injured. Near Jackson, Mississippi, 7 inches of rain turned streets into lakes and forced people to abandon their cars.
I had to come and knock on people's doors just to get them to come evacuate their cars before it took them under.
The heavy rain in Yazoo City, Mississippi created a flash flood, sweeping a 9-year-old girl away from her parents' back stoop last night. The search continues. In Birmingham, Alabama, the surging water stalled out some cars and overturned others. An apartment complex had to be evacuated. Pictures just in this evening of a reported twister in eastern North Carolina. At least a dozen injuries reported. Back here in Mississippi, emergency managers still assessing the damage. And a tornado watch continues into the evening hours for parts of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Brian?
Mike Seidel reporting on this outbreak of bad weather tonight from Mississippi. Mike, thanks. Today in South Africa, former Olympic track star Oscar Pistorius took the stand for the first time, facing charges he intentionally shot and killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, last year, and emotionally addressing members of her family. We get more from NBC's Mike Taibbi, who was there in the courtroom in Pretoria.
When Oscar Pistorius walked to the witness box, choosing not to give his testimony on camera, he surprised the court by turning to the family of Riva Steenkamp to apologize.
I wake up every morning and you're the first people I think of, the first people I pray for. I can't imagine the pain and the sorrow and the emptiness that I've caused you and your family. I was simply trying to protect Riva. I can promise that when she went to bed that night, she felt loved.
With his family looking on, Pistorius struggled with his emotions. He called killing Steenkamp by firing 4 shots through a locked bathroom door, thinking she was an intruder, a tragic mistake.
I have terrible nightmares about things that happen at night where I wake up and I smell blood, and I wake up to being terrified.
The former Olympic track star, said to have a short temper and a love of guns, today told the court he now lives in constant fear.
I don't obviously ever want to handle a firearm again or be around a firearm, so I've got a security guard that stands outside of my front door at night.
Pistorius will be back on the stand tomorrow, the only person who knows what happened that night, trying to convince the court he is telling the truth. Mike Taibbi, NBC News, Pretoria, South Africa.
In light of today's testimony, we are happy to welcome the newest member of our NBC News family, our senior legal correspondent, Cynthia McFadden. Welcome to you. And because this was a big day in this case, in your view, did he help himself?
Well, so far today, of course, this was friendly questioning, Ryan. It was his lawyer. He was trying to present himself as a man of good character, a calm person. I don't think any of this is going to matter greatly to the judge. What matters most is what is yet to come, and that is cross-examination. Will he be able to keep his cool, or will he show himself to be the kind of person who could have, in the fit of anger, savagely murdered his girlfriend?
Great to have you here. We will be watching it all. Welcome, Cynthia McFadden, here with us tonight. Now to a dramatic rescue playing out in the Pacific Ocean. A family of 4 sailing around the world got into trouble when their sailboat broke down, and their 1-year-old, the youngest of 2 children on board, got seriously ill. It's all led to a massive military effort to reach them. Tonight, the family is on their way home amidst some harsh judgments against the parents. I'll report on all of it tonight from NBC's Miguel Almaguer.
The rescue was dramatic and harrowing. First, the California Air National Guard plunging into the middle of the Pacific. The crew boarding this crippled sailboat, then whisking away a young family, bringing them aboard a Navy war vessel turned rescue ship.
And I think some people like to be all alone, and some people don't.
For Eric and Charlotte Kaufman, the trip began as a journey around the globe with their small children, 3-year-old Cora and 1-year-old Lyra.
Thanks for watching, and hopefully you have a great day out there. All right, bye.
But 900 miles off the coast of Mexico troubled. Their 36-foot sailboat lost power and steering. Lyra was seriously ill. Then a mayday call.
Lyra's doing great. She was responding well.
Tonight, baby Lyra is in good condition, and we now know the Kaufmans won't have to pay for the rescue. But they face a wave of criticism and outrage on social media.
We're all entitled to our own opinions. I'm sorry that there's criticism. I think sailing with children is a just fine idea.
The journey of a lifetime nearly over, but there is still plenty of drama about this voyage in the open seas. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, San Diego.
Still ahead on our Monday night broadcast, the epidemic sweeping across parts of this country, a desperate situation in so many American cities and towns caught in the grip of heroin. Tonight, a bracing and personal wake-up call. And later, he was the biggest movie star on the planet for his time, remembering the legendary Mickey Rourke, one of the all-time